Good morning, classmates, especially to our instructor, Mr. Danny Milgarao. Good day to you, sir. By the way, I am John A. Taliman, and I am the first presenter about the test of correlation. So, today, we will talk about the test of correlation. We need to know and we need to learn more about the test of correlation because aside of your knowledge, it is really important that you know how to demonstrate and execute properly because there are some of topics about test of correlation nga wala pa nato na hibaluan or wala pa nato masayri. Yes, that is because the test of correlation, it is needed to organize, you need to analyze, you need to evaluate if you conducted the data. Because the test of correlation, it is a part of research statistics, and so that we need to learn more about and we need to study about the test of correlation. Now, let's moving on to the definition of correlation. So, the definition of correlation, it says the variables are said to be correlated if the changes in one variable result in corresponding change in the other variable. Baddington states that whenever some definite connection exists between the two or more group, classes, or series or the data, there is said to be correlated. Simple correlation may be defined as the degree of relationship between the two variables. So, kung moingon gani kag correlation, when two variables are moved together. So, kung ang duha daw ka variables is kanang naga-move sila, kumbaga naa sila'y connection, naa sila'y relasyon, matawag na nato siya og correlation. So, let me give you an illustration or for instances about the test of correlation. So, si baon og si students. Si students is dili siya makabayad sa iyahang amutan, dili siya makareses, or dili siya makapalit og pagkaon without ibaon. Kay si students ug si baon are always together yun na sila. Dili yun na pwede nga si students is wala siya baon. Kay how come nga kung si students walay baon, so meaning to say walay mabuhat si students or dili siya kapalit og pagkaon, dili siya makapalit og dili siya makabayad sa iyang amutan rather. So meaning to say if walay baon si students, dili nato siya matawag og correlation. Pero og naa kay bali si ang variables diri is si students man og si kuan baon, inya nag-move sila together, mo na siyang matawag nato sila correlation. And another instances about sa correlation is si mag-uyab. So aware man gid mo ana kay di ba ang correlation na asiyay kanang connection, na asiyay relasyon sa matag usa, na relate gid siya, na siyay makita gid nato nga naa siyay connection, na siyay relasyon. Kay si bai og si lalaki, kung dili sila mag-move together sa ilahang relasyon, bali dili nato sila matawag og correlation. Kay wala may connection. If mag-move sila together, nagyud sila connection kana ay loyalty sa matag usa, na assurance, and unsa ba na ay connection, na ay naa sila'y relasyon. Hopefully that you have learned something, and thank you and God bless.
Today I will going to discuss my assigned topics, which is the type of correlation. There are different types of correlation, which is the positive and negative correlation, linear and non-linear correlation, simple, multiple, and partial correlation. And then now First, I will going to discuss the positive correlation. When the values of two variables move the same direction, correlation is said to be positive. If ang duha ka variable is nag-move sila og same direction, the correlation is said to be positive. Ang ilang correlation is positive. Example, an increase the value of the one variable result into an increase in the other variable also, or if decrease in the other variables of one variable result into a decrease in the other variable, also correlation is said to be positive. If ang isa ka variable is ang value is nag-increase, result na siya sa increase po, mag-result po, ang result na is mag-increase po ng isa ka variable. That is what we call positive correlation. Second is the negative correlation. When the value of two variables move opposite direction, correlation is said to be negative. Dire na po sa negative correlation is if ang duha ka variable is mag-move sila direction into opposite, that is what we call the negative. Ang ilang correlation is said to be negative. That is negative correlation. Next is linear correlation. When the amount of change in one variable leads to a constant ratio of change in the other variables, correlation is said to be linear. If the amount of change is in one variable is maglid siya og constant ratio sa change sa other variable, correlation that is said to be linear. Move next, nonlinear correlation. Correlation is said to be nonlinear or curvilinear when the amount of change in one variable is not a constant ratio. There is a nonlinear correlation is dili siya matawag og linear o ang variable is dili constant ratio. Next, simple correlation. In the study of relationship between the variables, if there are only two variables, the correlation is said to be simple. When one variable is related to number of others, the correlation is not simple. Simple correlation is if ang study sa relationship between sa variables, if there is only two variables, the correlation is said to be simple. And if ang isa ka variable is related sa number of others, correlation that is not simple. Next, partial correlation. Partial correlation. In partial correlation, we study the relationship between one variables, presuming that the other variables remains constant. Sa partial correlation is ang study is the relationship of one variables. Presume that the other variable remains constant. Next is the degree of correlation. Degree of correlation. The degree or the intensity of the relationship between two variables can be ascertained by finding the value of coefficient of correlation. The degree of correlation can be classified into three, which is the perfect correlation and the no correlation, and the third one is the limited degree of correlation. First, we discuss the perfect correlation. Perfect correlation, when the change in two variables is such that with an increase in the value of one, the value of the other increases in a fixed proportion, correlation is said to be perfect. The perfect correlation may be positive or negative. Coefficient of correlation is +1 for perfect positive correlation, and it is negative +1 for perfect positive correlation. And if it is negative 1 for perfect negative correlation. The second one is the no correlation. If the changes in the values of one variables in the association with the changes in the value of other variables, there will be no correlation. When there is no correlation, the coefficient of correlation is 0. The third one is the limited degree of correlation. In between no correlation and perfect correlation, there may be limited degree of correlation. It may also be positive or negative. Limited degree of correlation may be termed as high, moderate or low for limited degree of correlation. The coefficient of correlation lies between 0 and 1 numerically. That's all my topic assigned. Thank you.
I'm discussing to you the method for studying correlation. Correlation between two variables can be measured by both graphic and algebraic method. Scatter diagram and correlation graph is an algebraic method used for measuring correlation. This scatter diagram, this is a graphical method of studying the correlation between two variables. One of the variable is shown on the x-axis and the other one on the y-axis. So this is like example of scatter diagram, which you can see the x-axis and the y-axis have values is plotted on the graph by means of a dot mark. So the second one is correlation graph. Under this method, separate curves are drawn for the x variable and y variable. On the same graph paper, the values of the variable are taken as ordinates of the points plotted. So correlation graph, this is the example of correlation graph. From the direction and closeness of the two curves, we can infer whether the variables are related or not. Coefficient of correlation. Coefficient of correlation is an algebraic method of measuring correlation. Under this method, we measure correlation by finding a value known as the coefficient of correlation using an appropriate formula. Coefficient of correlation is a numerical value. It shows the degree or the extent of correlation. Coefficient of correlation is a pure number lying between and plus 1. When the correlation is negative, it lies between negative 1 and 0. When the correlation is positive, it lies between 0 and 1. When the correlation of coefficient is 0, it indicates that there is no correlation between the variables. Between no correlation and perfect correlation, there are varying degree of correlation.